anything that happens on the streets, if you spectated it, they can take your car. Roughly 3 months ago, I was driving through Detroit, and we had a 3-car convoy. I was actually going to meet with my attorney. So I'm from Kalamazoo. I'm not from Detroit. I'm actually friends with my attorney, and we were there for Savage Rally. While I was there, Rami said, "Hey, let's get together and grab lunch before you head out on the rally." I was going to meet with him, and like 5 police cars boxed us in, and they're screaming at us, "Get out of the car, get out of the car, give me your keys." And I'm like, why am I doing that? And they're like, "The other officer will tell you when he gets here." So we go through the whole thing. I get out of the car. Everybody gets out of my vehicles. We did surrender the keys as they asked us to. The lead officer shows up and refused to tell me why they were taking my cars. Because I'm on YouTube, he said, "If you turn the camera off, I'll tell you why." And I said, "If this isn't sketchy, you can tell me why on camera, because you can't just take my cars." And yes, I can. I have an order right here to do it. The order just said, "We're seizing your vehicles." And they checked off on it for street racing. And I asked him, I said, I haven't been street racing. I just left the hotel. Like, we're 6 blocks from the hotel. He said, "It's for a previous offense. And that's all I'm going to tell you." So immediately, like I was literally going to meet with my attorney. So I called him. I'm like, "Can you meet me here? Because obviously I'm not going to make it." And he showed up and just said, "Go ahead and give him the cars and we'll deal with it on the back end." And literally the next morning, he's like calling. And it turns out the way things work in Detroit right now, first of all, they can seize your cars if they think you've been drag racing, if they think you have spectated drag racing or any sort of racing event or drifting, anything that happens on the streets. If you spectated it, they can take your car, or cars in this case. They seize both the Lamborghinis, and it takes roughly a month and a half to get them back. I guess due to COVID, the office that you have to deal with is only open 3 days a week for 4 hours. And nobody ever answers the phone, but you also can't go in because of COVID. So Rami's on the phone daily, just like blowing him up, trying to get through. And it takes him, I think, 2.5 weeks to even get through to anybody. At which point they're saying, it's going to take a little while. We'll work on some paperwork. We'll get you some numbers, etc. He gets back to me. He's communicating with me this whole time, like trying to just keep me in the loop, because I'm kind of freaking out. They've got 2 Lamborghinis, and I don't know if I'm ever getting them back. And then the plot thickens. I start getting DMs from everybody. "Dude, you're on the news. You're on the news." Like, what am I on the news for? Well, the chief of Detroit police is parading my cars around the city doing press conferences. At which point he says that they are permanently forfeiting these cars. They're going to add them to their fleet and use them to entice people into drag racing so they can then seize those cars. And they're going to use them for undercover vehicles because, Lamborghinis don't stand out at all. So then I'm kind of freaking out, and I call Rami, and I'm like, "Rami, dude, what's going on?" He goes, "Don't worry about it. They can't keep your cars. That's not legal." I then get contacted by ABC News in Detroit, who wants to get my side of the story. The Detroit police would not give them my number. They would not give them my information. Turns out they tracked me down through alternative sources. And then we did a piece, and I said, first of all, the chief is lying. There were other cars. I should put that as a caveat. There were other vehicles, but he's standing in front of my 2 Lamborghinis, and he says all parties have been arrested and they're currently facing criminal prosecution. Not only have I not been arrested, I've never even been ticketed. At no point did they arrest me. I have still not received any sort of arrest warrant, any documentation saying I'm in trouble, other than the fact that they just wanted my cars. We speak to the news, and they said, they played the whole story, and then they updated their piece a little bit later, stating that the Detroit Police Department did in fact admit that Mr. Teen has not been arrested and is not currently facing criminal prosecution, and that Chief James was mistaken. Because apparently you can just make those kind of mistakes, and that's not a problem. Chief James then went on the record to state that I was telling mistruths, and my attorney was also a liar. Something along the lines of Mr. Teen and Mr. Hijazi are fabricating the truth, and that they will not be receiving these cars back. They are being permanently added to our fleet. At this point, my attorney had already sent me a copy of the paperwork from the prosecuting attorney with all the documentation and everything that we needed to get the cars back. So he was calling us a liar in the same statement that he was actually lying. At the end of it, we did end up getting the cars back. Rami actually met me at the impound yard. Well, one of the impound yards, because that is a whole nother cluster right there. You go to this sketchy building on the outskirts of Detroit and pay some lady a bunch of money behind a glass window. And that takes about a half hour to 40 minutes. And she eventually comes back with some paperwork after she tells you that you don't have everything you need. And then you say, it's right here. No, it's right here. And we go through the whole thing. I get some pieces of paperwork to go to another yard. Rami then meets me there, and we go through the whole process with them. And I can't get my cars out on my own. I have to hire a tow truck to go into the yard and pull them out of the yard and drop them off in the street in front of the yard. And it takes so long to get the first one out that finally the guy just gives me the keys. He's like, go get the other one. Apparently he had to pick up his daughter from school and we were holding him up. So we bring the cars out and we inspect all of the cars, and both of the cars have been damaged. One of the cars appears to have been backed into something. The Huracan has some damage to the back end where maybe they backed into a pole or another car, or I don't know. Both of them had damage from towing, being pulled up onto or off of the flatbeds. They actually had me drive them onto the trucks when they seized them, so I know they were good at that point. But we don't know how many press conferences they did or to what places they moved them all around the city. We only know of at least one, but regardless, they had to move it from the impound yard to police headquarters for the one press conference. Obviously, we weren't privy to how they did that, how they moved them, what companies they used, and whether or not they know how to tow a Lamborghini. But yeah, both vehicles had thousands of dollars worth of damage to them, which still hasn't been accounted for. They allege that I street raced within the city of Detroit. What they got that from is a YouTube video that I put out of the Huracan racing, but to prosecute me or to even seize the cars based on this video would be like arresting Vin Diesel for racing in Fast and Furious. It's a YouTube video. You can't determine where this was done, or the complete circumstances of the video were unknown, which I'm sure is probably why they haven't prosecuted me, but it was a reason for them to use to seize the cars. The cost to get the cars back was pretty significant. According to the city of Detroit, at least the paperwork that they handed me, it was $900 per car. It says that very specifically, first offense, $900 per car. When Rami called them, they said $2,500 per car, that paperwork was wrong, and it really doesn't matter that they handed me paperwork that the police were mistaken, that wasn't the form they were supposed to give me. And then they decided to Lamborghini tax me on top of it. They said $2,500 is just their base. They can kind of do whatever they want to with it. And I can't remember the numbers that Rami gave me, but I think they started out somewhere around $5,000 or $6,000 per car, and he was able to pull some strings somewhere. And I don't remember the final total. I think we were probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $6,000 plus all the towing, taxes, fees, everything that they decided they needed to add on. This is an ongoing issue in Detroit. You can have your car taken for, again, being at a street racing event or even being near it. I've had a bunch of people contact me through Instagram asking me, who's your attorney? Who helped you with this? Because my car got taken. One guy said he was literally stopped because people were street racing and he couldn't get down the street. And they showed up, took his car. And of course, being on YouTube and Instagram and whatnot, I was posting constantly about the process. And the day that I went to get the cars, my attorney had 41 phone calls in the time between we picked up the cars and we finished dinner that night from people saying, please help me. It is our intent in the future to bring a suit against Wayne County and the Detroit Police Department for the damages. And my attorney has some questions regarding constitutionality of the actual law that they're using to do this. When the whole thing's all said and done with, I actually let my attorney take the cars for a weekend, kind of as a reward for all the amazing things that he did to get my cars back. And I found out afterwards that he actually was stopped by people, pedestrians, 5 or 6 times a day going, hey, are you the cops? Give him his cars back. It was so well known in the area that everybody knew about it, and apparently they thought my attorney was one of the police holding my cars.
We all love Amazon, but most of us have had that experience where you buy something with a lot of glowing reviews that shows up and is just a piece of garbage, and it wasn't what you thought you were buying. Unfortunately, Amazon can be full of bad actors and fake reviews and things that just don't live up to what you think is going to come in a day or two after you order it. That's why New on Amazon has been developed. It was developed by Patrick Kupolari, a friend of the channel, a good storyteller who's talked about BMWs and McLaren F1s and things like that, and he's a huge e-commerce expert, and you can learn more about that on his YouTube channel. But he built a site of trusted sellers, well-reviewed products, and things that he actually knows will show up looking the way that you want them to, and so it's a great way to filter out some of the noise and some of the bad products that you might otherwise discover on Amazon. So check out New on Amazon at the link in the description below, and thank them for supporting VINwiki this month.